Hey, it's Shane Mulligan here with Maxx Leverage. I'm going to be putting a lot of videos on our YouTube channel, talking about kind of the Maxx Leverage story and how we, got to where we are today. Right now, I think I'm going to talk about patents. A lot of people ask me about how to patent something. I've looked it up on YouTube myself, and there's a few things about patents on there. Not really exactly how it is with the patents. You definitely, people say, hey, don't get a patent, get a patent. I recommend getting a patent. Everybody always asks if you have a patent, so you're gonna want it. You're gonna want to get one of those. So let's start by patent pending. Patent pending is basically just a form. You fill it out, the general gist of whatever it is that you came up with. Super easy, super cheap. I think it's under $150. A little bit of a drawing, some drawings of your product. They're always approved, and basically all the patent pending paperwork. It's just like a placeholder. Lasts for 12 months, and that's all it is. It's a placeholder saying, hey, I come up with this idea, and this is when I came up with it, whatever that date is. Then you have to move on to your actual patent, which is completely separate from that. You do get your place, and I think it lasts for 12 months, and then you have to have you have to go ahead with your actual patent, utility patent, or maybe design patent, which, whatever you think is going to be best suited for you. Utility is about function. Design is obviously what it's saying. Design, and they're difficult. I know, because in the beginning I had to do mine myself, and so I spent a lot of time online looking at patents, trying to figure out how to do it, looking at other people's patents, to get the layout. And I did it, I think, 3 times, because obviously the first time, I shot it in there, it got rejected. I might even have done it 2 times, and when I say rejected, I mean they kicked it back. So if you put a patent in, if they have issues with it, it's a huge process of making, just getting through like the processing portion of it before it even gets to an examiner. Certain things have to be has to be a certain format, the margins on the page, even on the edge. I think one time I got rejected for my margins on my patent. So after you get through basic structure of the patent, which really doesn't have anything to do with content, just the structure, it ends up with the examiner, and then he looks at it, he compares it to other people's in the same field, or with similar type products, that he compares it to make sure that yours has enough difference to go ahead and approve your patent. The degree of difference you need, I don't know. Not even I've talked to the patent examiners multiple times. You're able to do that if you do your own patent. Once you get a lawyer, you're no longer allowed to do that. So in the beginning, since I didn't have a lawyer, in the end we ended up getting a patent attorney, because finally my partners and I decided to put the money out there, get it done right. I was no longer allowed to talk to those guys. Learned a lot of valuable information when I talked to the examiner. The first time, it was like the guy spoke a whole different language. I had no idea what he was talking about. I mean, the stuff he was saying, it was in English, but I didn't. It was he talked completely different than anybody I've ever talked to. Second time, it is after a while, and we messed with our patent for years. The language and the lingo and it started sinking in with me, because I was like the lead on getting that thing done. He basically, he couldn't even give me the degree of difference. So there's not like a 10%. It's just, I think it's really up to the examiner. He looks at something and he thinks if there's enough, and he'll go ahead and approve it. I've seen especially in our product. They're not similar to our product per se, but some other products were patented, pretty similar. There wasn't a lot of degree of difference in two different products that were patented. Basically did the same thing with a little bit of adjustments, and they approved it. Now that doesn't mean that it will stand up in court. So just because the patent examiner gives you a patent, and let's say basically two people can have something patented, and they can still go to court and say, hey, he's violating my patent. And then it'll be up to a judge, because it's not that the examiner gives you the patent, but it still doesn't mean it that you can't challenge it if you feel like somebody that just patented something new is infringing on your design. That's useful information that hey, basically patents are really it's just there's no like real strict or set standard to how they are or what's in them. Another thing is your claims. Your claims is basically what your product does. And when you're describing what your product does, I try to think about how somebody could copy our product, what we have to put in there, because that's important. You can get a patent. It doesn't mean that it's good. You can put some generic stuff in there. It's not that great. You think you have the drawing, and really it relies on the claims themselves and the wording. So you want to make sure that's good. Ours is a pretty simple product, and I think our claims section is an entire page. And it's simple. Our product is simple, and compared to a lot of other people's stuff they invent, has a lot more to it. So they'd probably be a lot longer. When you're doing your claims, one of the things I did originally is he said that you can't make infinite claims, meaning like our product uses wrenches. So I think in the beginning I wrote it takes one wrench. It will, you can put one wrench to basically an infinity amount of wrenches in it. And technically you can, because we could expand our product to make it bigger and bigger. So it's hard to say how many wrenches it can take exactly, but you have to put it in there. You have to choose an amount, because he's not going to just let you say, hey, it takes one to forever. And that's just an easy way to explain basically that it has to, you have to have an amount. And obviously every product's different, but you just have to remember that you have to have a set. I said, well, this is the amount, this is the weight, this is, whatever it is. Now for sizes, you can have multiple sizes. But that's just, it's not what it does. The sizes, okay, I can have multiple sizes, but when you're explaining in your claims what your product does, it's important to be really specific. But also think about how somebody could copy your product, but you can't just make stuff up. It has to be, obviously, you can't just do whatever you want, It really helped me when we finally got a patent attorney, but I still wrote the claims. He built the new structure because my structure was still off, got the wording correct, and then we spent a lot of time, going through it and adjusting the words. Words are important. I talked to an examiner the second time that it got rejected. So the first time it got rejected, infinite claims was one of them, that I was making infinite claims. The next time it was a different examiner, and she made some statements to me about being similar to another product, and it wasn't. Ours, nothing. They didn't even do the same thing. I was a mechanic. I know what I'm looking at when I'm looking. When she's saying my product was similar to, it wasn't. It had not even the same thing, but the wording was similar. So I realized then that they don't necessarily know what they're looking at either, and they're looking at wording. So I changed my wording to make sure that it was different. It sounded different when you're reading it than other people's products. Well, I'll keep going on. at a later video about patents, because it's a long process. I don't want to make these videos too long. People don't want to listen to them. So I'll shoot another video out later.